Okay, so this is my demo level, and I made some cool stuff. I'm a fan of this stuff, sort of like from movies at least, and then I'm trying to like make AI work in FLAX Engine, and it's not so easy. So far, I got where I can shoot stuff, I can fly around. There's collision on this with the spaceship, and then there's something like a laser that somehow works like I don't know, but a laser, and then there is sound when I like hit the coins, and they sort of like despawn a few seconds after that and sort of like disappear. So I think that this is like a cool video game. So now I want to add something like AI, and I created this sort of like AI enemy. So it's sort of like an enemy, and it's somehow made of something like computer chips and something like AI patterns perhaps. And to actually make this work is quite difficult. Go into FLAX Engine documentation. Here we go. And there is something here in scripting called artificial intelligence. And I don't know if you can. Whoops. Here. Scripting and artificial intelligence. Okay, zoom in here. It's just here. So there is something called behavior trees, and they were like quite easy to add. You just sort of like right click, hit new and AI, and then a behavior tree, and then you think that test AI, so that just sort of like works, right? And then when you click here, you can click the root, and these things just don't work right away. For instance, but you can like, for instance, click here and you can add a float, for instance, float 4, and then you get that down here with some like blacked out or grayed out areas that you can't really set. So you can sort of like add stuff there, and then after that you can add what's called goals here, which is something that's important in these behavior trees. And again, for instance, you can make an integer, you can make another integer, and then we can make a float. Let's make a float 2, and what's called an actor, which is sort of like a reference to a node over here, something like, for instance, the main character. So now you have these, and I've set the blackboard type to like float 4, and then this is all I get. These are like my 4 parameters that I should be able to like use, and it just doesn't make sense. And for instance, if I want to call something movement speed, I can't like rename these. These goals here are just called element 0 and so on, and I'm simply not sure how to use them, except that I know that, for instance, if I move this down here, and for instance the delay button here, I can, for instance, find a wait time selector, and that can be one of the coordinates, which is basically a float. I'm not sure that an integer, you can't select an integer, but for instance, one of the coordinates in the is sort of like in this, you can sort of like type that in here and say that you want it to be this or that, but then when you go back here, you can't set the values. So this float 4 here is down here, so it looks like you can type something, but you can't really write something here either. So it's like quite difficult to like make sense of like what you're supposed to do. So that's all like why I'm not really sure how they want this to work. So then after like reading about this, and there's this cool page here, and like it says you can make it work somehow. The people that coded the engine somehow have gotten this to work where something actually moves and so on. There's a nav mesh and so on. And then if you go to like behavior knowledge, you will see that it for instance, it says something here that there's something called the blackboard. And if we go back here, then you can see that there's a blackboard type, and there's something like the blackboard down here. Yeah, I'm not sure I said it here, but you can see there's no blackboard type assigned, and you do that with the blackboard type here at the top, and then that sort of that, and I've gotten this far. So again, it's because I have enabled snapping here that this happens. So there is like a bug where if you enable snapping, it sort of like messes with the placement of the it's like places the sort of like so-called decorators where you add some details to some of these boxes here. So in order to like get this to work, add some stuff down here with something like names and movement speeds and values. I had to go in here and check with something like called behavior knowledge, which is something like it contains certain knowledge about the environment, enemies, goals, and sensors. Behavior knowledge is a data-only container to store all data related to behavior. And then blackboard goals values can be custom structures or objects. And I have no idea. And then something like structures are recommended for small values. For larger data containers, use object. And then it says something like here, if you like read here, how you declare a public class that's somehow an object. And it says public class, and then you add that it's an object, and then you can declare something like a public struct here. So this is a class that can be an object if you like add these words here, and a struct you sort of like declare by writing it this way. So you have to somehow write this, and then you start getting stuff. So I basically went here and let's see here, and somehow try to do that. And I only have like this code editor here right now. So let's just I think that something like this, where I basically this is sort of like where I just followed the tutorial and then wrote something like using FLAX engine is something like for the C# or something like the engine, so it knows that it's that code language or it's the FLAX engine code stuff. So that's sort of like why that's first. And then these here are just comments. They don't really run or matter when there's these sort of like dashes in front of them. And then it's a class. And then when it's done, sort of like you add something like that is an object and it's a class. And then store AI vars here for enemy 2. And then I just sort of like declare, let's see if I can do like this. Then I just sort of like declare, now this might not work, so let's just save and we go back. It's work, does it work? Oh yeah, it still runs. Okay, so so that's all like so as far as I have gotten here, where I'm at now is that I can sort of like then click here and search for if I search for store, then that sort of like is here. I don't know why there's 2 now, but I guess I'll declare that somewhere. And then that's all like where I had to like write actually a C# here, where for instance notice here when you're like in the content folder, you can like add a ton of stuff to the engine, AI, animation, material, particles, blah 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 blah. But you actually have to know that you have to go into this folder called game, and then you can add C# or C++ here. And then here, like I created a new folder here, and then so like you can add stuff here, where I think that as nice as this is, it doesn't really say you have to like do that in this documentation, and it says somewhere else in the entire documentation perhaps you have to do that. But as someone that just sort of doesn't know the entire engine and just needs this one feature right now, that I have to like learn everything else in the documentation before like I have an idea of like how to use this sort of like one page is a bit annoying. So here we go. Let's go back and see. Here we go. So I finally got this to work, where somehow adding something like a ton of numbers and stuff to this blackboard is you click here, and then inside here the code in this folder game, or where I've added this, somehow auto runs. So if I like type something new, it's sort of gonna run this and then add it to the rest of the engine, so you can like search for it. So let's just see where here we go. Star Wars enemy here. Let's just copy this down here and click save, and let's just click here. So that's all like why there. So now you see now that that window closes, and I have to like go back to the folder where I added a behavior tree that I have to like add here. So I can't add a C# script in the content folder. I can only add it here, and then it's sort of like if I do that here, then it sort of like runs it, And either I should create like a class that's a FLAX engine object, or I can create a struct here, and it somehow tells you at the beginning that structures are recommended for small values, larger data containers use object. And then here you can say that this is the code in written code for like how to declare a struct, and this is how you declare a class that's then an object within the FLAX engine. If you write it like first you declare the class, and then you add something like this text here so that it's a class that's also an object, and then somehow you have, when you add that to this folder here without really explaining it, it somehow integrates it or starts running it in the engine just because it's in this folder. And then you can finally click here, and then you get these, but you can't edit them. But notice that it says movement speed 2 and ammo left 12. So if I go in here, and you can see that I have defined that here, movement speed, so I can for instance set this to 4, and this is an integer, so let's just set this to like let's say 63. We click save. Now nothing happens, but if I close here, notice now that the engine sort of like stopped, and sort of like, I think now if you go back here, you can like see that no, wait a minute, oh wait, what did I do? Behavior trees here, file, save, didn't change anything. Hello. So I just change the numbers. So, okay, so let's just we're just gonna click save now. Let's go. Ready? It's gonna give me an error here. Now we go back here. I don't know if it's just sort of like I have to like now we click save again. We go back. Now it says ready, and now we can go into AI, and you can see that now the movement speed is 4 and the ammo left is like 63. But I can't change these numbers, and I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. And now what I can do is, for instance, suppose that I want to add a delay. Whoops. Now I can't do that either. And now I can't, right click and like add new nodes. And I'm not sure what I've done to like do that, but perhaps it's because I got that error in the script. So now I have to like close the engine and start it again. And this sort of like gives an idea of like how sometimes it's rather annoying to, and now I think that I can like, so now I can add a delay, for instance, and just sort of like be connected here. Somehow that's sort of like you're supposed to do that, and I can somehow add a wait time selector here, and then these numbers that I have added, for instance, a move speed under a blackboard should be like 4. So that's like how I can finally get a number into this somehow behavior tree, which I think is something like, I don't even know, like, does this make sense, or is this very user friendly? Or then if I like want to change the number, my guess is that I have to go back here and for instance behavior tree, and if I for instance write, for instance, that this number is, let's say it's 5, and then I click save and I close, then nothing happens because the file is still the same size, so it doesn't look like it's changed. So, but if I write, for instance, say 58 here and I close, now it runs it again because now the file has changed size, and then I can go in here, for instance, and type 4, and now I can click save, right? And it's all like, and then I return. Now you can see that now it goes gray, and now it's ready. So to like update stuff, I actually have to change the number of letters in the final written code, and then it will like update it here. Now it's back to 4. Now it's 53. I forgot what it was, but let's see. I go back here. I think it was 12, right? So now, for instance, if I write 12, click save, I go back to the engine, it doesn't do anything, it doesn't go gray. So if I go back in here and, for instance, I write 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, I click save, now I close this, then it does stuff, because now the file has like changed size, and that makes the engine so like update. Now I go back, now you can see the updates, and this is sort of like what it's like right now to work with this sort of like AI, where I'm not sure that how cool this is, and like this is how far I've gotten, where I'm sort of like, I'm done for the day, and I don't know what else I'm supposed to do here, and so I'm like a bit tired of the engine right now. But it's a very cool engine. It looks very, very nice, and then there's a ton of cool graphics you can add very easily. I'm just a fan of these things from the movies, and perhaps wish I'd been a soldier when I was younger, that's all. And then this sort of like nice demo level where you can fly around and pick up coins and so on. So that's my devlog for today, and like how far I've gotten, and I hope to make this AI work. But right now, this is sort of like all I got, and I'm just too tired to work on this shit from like, sort of like wears you down, so like learning shit like this. That's it. Thank you. Bye.